Welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Michael Klukas, also known as KES, and I help teams and leaders improve their life and career by keeping everything simple. So this video, I want to talk about an article by the Morning Brew, or by HR Brew, that I thought really highlights kind of the discrepancy that we have between the statement of, if you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life. So let's jump right in. So the article itself is, again, if you don't know what Morning Brew is, it is an email newsletter that comes into your inbox about once a week, or once a day, I mean, but there are different versions that they have. So I'm not sponsored by them, though. Hey, Morning Brew, sponsor me. So it's a good way to get your news in under 5 minutes. So this is an article that they have written about an interview. So the interview itself is only a 3-minute read. So again, it's a very short read, which is good. It keeps it brief, but also very concise. But it's titled, "Loving What You Do Doesn't Guarantee Happiness at Work." And so it's about Sarah Joff's book. I do not know if I pronounced her name right, but "Work Won't Love You Back" stands in opposition to corporate hand-wringing over trends like quiet quitting. I don't think quiet quitting is anything necessarily new, but I think it is, again, being put in the limelight with buzzwords like quiet quitting, as well as just people emphasizing work-life balance. So let's dive into this. So again, 3-minute read, very quick and simple. And I will say, yes, I am going to be actually reading the interview as we go and giving my thoughts as we go. So buckle in. From an early age, Sarah Joff remembers being asked to describe her dream job. There were several iterations, from the implausible, a veterinarian in space, to the slightly more attainable, writer. Whatever her target, parents and educators alike told her that if she could get paid to do something she loved, she'd be both successful and happy. And when she found herself working as a journalist, the dream, she realized she was still broke, still stressed, and still freelancing on the side to make ends meet. Loving her work was not making her happy. And I want to take a moment there to pause and really say, I started this video saying there is a very common statement that I think we're all aware of. If you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life. And while this is technically true, there is a bit of a misconception here. Anyone who is in a field, in a position that does meet their internal purpose, their internal mission, they love it, there are days that they inevitably feel, or there are days where they inevitably feel like what they are doing is work. See, you can love what you do and still recognize that there are days that it's going to feel hard. There's going to be some days you like it less than others. There's going to be some days where you're going to have to do the unfun parts of it. So if you love what you do, that will make it worth it to get through those days, but it won't always, as the beginning of the article says, it won't love you back. Jumping back to the article, in her book, "Work Won't Love You Back: How Devotion to Our Jobs Keeps Us Exploited, Exhausted, and Alone," Joff offers a message that flies in the face of C-suite hand-wringing over so-called quiet quitting. Joff argues that workers, particularly in those fields that recruit on the promise of purpose, are often unfairly expected to make sacrifices, take unpaid internships, working long hours, or accepting low wages to do what they love, and that pursuing a job for passion often leads to being exploited. But again, taking a moment to step back here, why would we want to pursue passions knowing that there's things that we won't be able to afford or be able to do because we're choosing to do that? So for those of you who have heard of the starving artist problem, it is this idea that if you were to go into arts or liberal arts, whatever it is, the probability that people give you of actually being successful, paying your bills, making a career out of it is little to none. That is the story that we're fed and that we're told, that if you choose to be an artist, you'll be a starving artist. And this article so far touches on there needs to be some narrative, some dialogue and conversation about not just being exploited, exhausted, and feeling alone in your job. The first question they ask her is, which professions are told to love what they do and be grateful for what they get? You hear about teachers going on strike and everybody's like, well, you didn't get into teaching for the money, or nurses or doctors. You did this career because you care about people. What do you mean you're asking for more for yourself? When the Google union was announced, the first thing everybody said was, unions are for coal miners. You have a great job. How dare you? This mentality has crept into many industries, even the ones that nobody would expect you to love. And I believe that's a good point. Like, I have family. My grandfather was a teacher. I have family that are teachers. And I will say, it is, well, family and friends, it is concerning for me and for them as well to have this profession that they do love. They do love teaching. They do love working with kids. But to be told, hey, you're going to struggle. You're going to be like the starving artist. You won't be able to pay your bills, or you won't be able to fully realize what you want to do because of XYZ, funding, limitations, law, or whatever it is. That's not okay. And I think this is important for businesses to know as well, is why wouldn't you want to take care of the people who are foundational to your success? It's a good question. So let me move on to the next question. Are employees starting to question this mindset around work? And we certainly, as a society, are seeing actual pushback from quit rates to unionization, union drives, and strikes, but it's still down from the 50 to 60 years ago, to say nothing of 100 years ago. But we are seeing in real numbers people refusing to accept the cuss word condition that they've been dealt. Okay, yes, I said cuss word. I didn't actually say the cuss word. We're being family friendly over here. But if you've seen Fantastic Mr. Fox, you know exactly what that reference is. So, we're moving on. We're going to jump back into this now. So, the next question is, you write that this culture leads to people being underpaid, overstretched, and devalued. Given the example of the video game industry, where offices are set up to seemingly encourage employees to stay at work, how might HR's perks contribute to workers feeling overstretched? Well, why do you give employees perks? Because you want to keep good employees. Well, what do you want to keep good employees doing? Working a lot. It's not just that you want to keep good employees because you like having them around. The video game industry has a term for this intense overwork: crunch. They work 100-hour weeks leading up to deadlines. There is this culture of hiring young, mostly men, right out of school, and the company essentially sets itself up as something between their mom and their wife. So the company feeds you. The company advertises its home-cooked meals on Fridays, or orders you pizza if you stay past 7 p.m. The company is going to do all these things for you, and in turn, what they expect for you to do is work. And I do have to say, I've made jokes about this in the past, and to be fair, I do love a good pizza party. I'm going to put a photo on here and just put this into perspective. When I was a child, when I was in 6th grade, I was over 200 pounds. And when I tell you that pizza was and still is my favorite food, I'm not kidding. I used to devour a whole pizza and a half because I was like, oh, you know what? Might as well, and still have room for dessert. So you can see what that looked like. But no, in all seriousness, when this company is relying on things like, hey, a monthly pizza party, there's going to be donuts and bagels every Friday in the break room. We got these new vending machines in that have more snacks for you guys. These are perks. They shouldn't be the incentives, I believe, that you give to say, hey, you should stay here, keep working for us, work these long hours. So when I worked in retail, when I still had my large team, I had a new boss that came in during the holidays. So this was the new store director. And I will say this, and this is just the reality of the situation. She made a huge mistake. So let me put this in the context here and give you a little bit of story time. For those of you who watched my video on why I quit my job originally, you can hear more about that there. But here is another story from that about why this matters so much, of not mistreating and trying to exploit your team because of errors you made. There was a remodel happening, and they chose to use extra payroll and hours from what they had thought was the remodeling payroll bucket. Turns out it wasn't. Or whatever the situation was, turns out that they had taken time that we didn't actually have, payroll we didn't actually have, and used it. Buffed up the schedule so much at the beginning of the year that as we progressed throughout the weeks, we realized we have to trim back so much to actually maintain progress and maintain goals for pay and payroll, that our full-time workers who are expecting their 40 hours or overtime are suddenly down to the hours of a part-time worker. Our part-time workers are suddenly down to, hey, we'll call you every once in a while. And we lost good team members because of this. We lost A players because they have bills, responsibilities. They have things they have to do. And for us to say, because of an error that was made, you have to cut back on your hours. We can't help you pay your bills. We can't provide for you despite you coming in and working for us. And so the result is, well, here's some specs. Here is the sick time that you have. Here is the vacation time that you have. Use it. It's the beginning of the year. You just got off holiday breaks. What the solution ended up being, or one of them was to just tell the team to take as much sick time as possible if they wanted to maintain their current pay. Even though, regardless of what happened, they were still going to have less hours than they would otherwise. And if they used their vacation time, they were going to have less vacation time for when they actually needed it and wanted it. And this progressed, where my boss at the time, they continued to just do this kind of putting out the fire, where it was, hey, trim down the schedule, have a skeleton team, as minimum people as possible, and then only come to find day of, which happened repeatedly, hey, we don't have enough people to do this, call people in. Have your team that you cut their hours, see if you can get them to stay longer, see if you can get them to stay overtime somehow. So if they're working their 6-hour shift that you trimmed it to, see if you can get them working 8-10 hours. And we had to sit there and think, why would we want to do this to our team? Why do we want to use this as our crunch time? Why do you think it's okay to do it that way? And this continues to where it's then, hey, let's call people in. Let's get people in and borrow payroll from next week, from the week after, from next month, or borrow payroll from other stores. It's this idea of there's deadlines to meet, there's KPI, so key performance indicators that have to be met. However, if you are overworking and exploiting your team, it doesn't matter. You won't be able to achieve the results that you want. My team, who were amazing, they tried to handle as best they could, and I tried to support as best I could. We couldn't do our work in a manner that was sufficient. And that was just the unfortunate result of a big mistake. And so that leads us then into the last little bit of the interview. So where do you see solutions? The basic concept of exploitation will only be fixed if you overthrow the capitalist mode of production. Barring that, which is not immediately likely, this is what unions are for. This is what organizing is for. This is also what labor law is for. This is what overtime pay is for. This is what all these things are for, to try to lessen the misery of work in various ways. Now, I don't personally believe that work has to be miserable. Again, I do believe that there'll be times where work, even if you love it, will still feel like work. It will be hard and it won't be as fun at times, and that's okay. I want you guys to know that's okay. Whether you're a team member or a team leader, you won't always be having the time of your life at work. If you are, please comment what your job is. I'm really curious. I really want to know what makes you love your job so much. Again, going to the idea of like the capitalist mode of production, it sounds a little odd to me, but here's why. There is the idea of wealth and business being a zero-sum game. So a zero-sum game essentially being all the cards are on the table, you take them as they come, and eventually there's nothing left. Whoever gets what they get, that's all there is. No one else, if they come to the table, can pull any cards, can get any chips, whatever it is. However, I don't believe business, team leader, or anything in that category, it has to be a zero-sum game. There is enough for everyone, but I would look at it like this. If I say I want to have a business that makes $2 million, I want like a vendor to make $1.5 or $1 million. I don't want them to lose. I just don't want them to win as much as I do. But at the same time, again, I don't want them to lose because there's enough to go around. There's enough, I believe, to incentivize people to innovate, incentivize people to work while taking care of them, while empowering them and actually making what they do worthwhile, while still meeting goals, expectations, KPIs, whatever it is. And that's how I tend to look at it. So you won't always like what you do. And that's okay. If you are a team leader, you also have to recognize that you have to be careful how you approach your team when the going gets tough. And you have to be aware of what that means for them and what it means for you. Because you can't exploit your team consistently and just hope that they never notice and things will just work out. And at the same time, you have to take ownership that you are providing for them so they have the resources, have the capability to really work at their best capacity. So you won't always love what you do. However, if you keep everything simple, I believe you can learn to love the parts that mean the most to you. Thank you all very much for watching this video and keeping everything simple. Be sure to check out my video on turnover contagion, where I review another article there. Have an amazing day, and I will see you all in the next video.